What is going on, everybody? Today, I want to chat. We are hitting roughly the 1 year mark of learning Chinese, and I just want to talk about it a little bit. And so that is what we are going to do. I've got a pen here because I'm going to write down the time stamps as they come across them. That way, if you want to transfer to watch whatever it is that you want to watch, you're more than welcome. I also have a list of notes here of things that I want to talk about. And so that is what we are going to do. So I am roughly 1 year into starting to learn Mandarin again. And I want to be kind of open about what this is and what it is, because I've studied Mandarin longer than a year. So to say that this is a 1 year update isn't quite honest. And I don't want to be somebody who's like, oh, I learned X in 6 months, and I took also 4 years in high school and 4 years in college, but I didn't learn anything. But now these 6 months are. But what I mean when I say I'm a year into it is a year ago I started back into Mandarin, and I already had some previous experience. I had never really dedicated wholeheartedly to study, and so the last year is when I really decided to kind of pick things up and make things um, just a little more permanent with what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get into. It also marks kind of the first time in doing a dedicated study instead of just kindly immersing or anything of that nature, because I have done a little bit of immersion and stuff before. I actually even have on my channel where you can see where I've done like, I think I had at one point even done like 5 months of immersion, but I never did any kind of sentence mining or anything like that. It was one of those things where I was a very lazy language learner, and I thought that you know you could just watch stuff and pick it up. Now, do I think that it helped me in some aspects? I absolutely do. I think that I can hear Mandarin probably better than a person who have spent only a year, and it's because of past experience. So it's more so a year of getting back into it and taking Mandarin serious, because it's not something that I have done honestly up until this point. I could speak very little. I would go into a store and I could say, I would like this. I wasn't having any intricate conversations or anything like that. Not that I am now, and we're going to get into this, but I mean, like, I'm doing speaking classes where I'm speaking, 30 minutes at a time, strictly in Mandarin. So seeing where I'm at now compared to where I was a year ago is like night and day. And like, I thought I could do decent, okay then. And then I look back and I'm like, no, dude, you had no, like, you did okay, but you definitely didn't know what you were doing compared to now. And I know that in another year, I'll be saying the same thing about now. So yeah, I just wanted to say that up front. It's not really a true 1 year update. Um, Although my Mandarin prior to a year ago, while I could say a couple things, order a couple of food items and things like that, yeah, I could do that. But I'm at a point now where I can talk about weight loss, going to the gym. I can mention things about taxes. I can talk about not really in depth, but I know words involving law and things like that. So I was very beginner, probably not even quite an A1 or an HSK1 a year ago. I'm not sure what my level is now. I just know that it's higher. So yeah, that's where we're at. And a year ago, I started doing Mandarin Blueprint, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, all right, let me write down this timestamp because we're going to start talking about the next thing. So we're at 4:15. 4:15. Okay. So a year ago, I started using Mandarin Blueprint regularly. I had it before. I had done it for a very, very short amount of time. I had learned about 200 characters. And of that 200 characters, I would study, but it was very lackadaisical. I ended up breaking my elbow, so I couldn't write. And when I do Mandarin Blueprint, I write. Just tons and tons and tons of characters. Just page and page. There's I don't know, 50, 60 pages in here full of characters that I write, still to this day, right? And so I started that. And that is what really kind of catapulted this journey. So a year ago is when I started concentrated effort in study. I started not just saying, okay, I'll just immerse and hopefully I'll get there, as to where I actually more so concentrated effort, looking at characters, specifically looking up words. I was using Mandarin Blueprint's flashcard system, and that seemed to really just kind of help with what I was doing. So as of right now, I'm at 100. Actually, my notes say 118, but I actually just hit 130 the other day. 130 characters known in Mandarin Blueprint now, which roughly equates the last unit finished, which was like 2 units ago, right at 1,000, accumulates to 2,616 words, which obviously is a pretty large amount. Now, does that mean that I can understand them when people speak it? No, it's just that I'm aware of them. So when I'm reading something or watching something, like, I'm aware of them. And just over the course of time, I see these words over and over and over again, and they slowly start to stick. It's just I am aware of them. They've been put in front of me, so I am aware they exist, and now I will find them, and I will see kind of what they have in store for me. I do think that Mandarin Blueprint, and I'm talking about this first, and if you don't want to hear about Mandarin Blueprint, timestamps are at the bottom. I think that Mandarin Blueprint is the biggest reason that I have gotten to where I have. I needed a system that worked for me. I've tried a bunch of different things with Mandarin. I could never make sense of some things. Yeah, I have a little bit of a background in Japanese, and so, oh crap, I gotta sneeze. And so, obviously, I have a little bit of a background in Japanese, so I could understand or see some characters. Obviously, simplified is a bit different than traditional, but I still struggled with it. And having to try to create this story for a whole character, or the way that it was broken down in, like, remember the Hanza or remember the kanji, from where you had this formulated thing, I really struggled with it. I was really attracted to Mandarin Blueprint because of the create your own mnemonic system, which literally anybody could do. It's not that complicated of a thing, but having like a guide that broke it down and went character by character to where you were building one thing on top of another, that that really, really, really helped me. Yeah, I think getting to 1,000 characters is a very, very crucial part of me being where I am. I've slowed down a little bit on it, simply because what I have is so much. It's like, I don't even remember. It's over 80% of what's used in daily conversation, and like basically the next 2,500 characters I learn will cover the next 15% or whatever. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, well, I could spend a whole lot of time on this, or I could dedicate, let's say, 20 minutes a day to learning a handful of characters and then go and interact with the language, because I'm at a point where I can. It depends on the content, of course, but I can go and interact with at least intermediate level content, and if I struggle with it, as long as I have a transcript and I can kind of follow along, then I'm a little bit better, which I'm working on that. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, Mandarin Blueprint, I think, is part of the reason why I am where I am. Again, slowed down a little bit on it, but overall, it's a very big reason of me being where I am. So, all right, we're going 9:05. All right. So next up, we'll talk about Immersion, which is stuff I'm doing now. I mostly for Immersion, I do reading and I do watching. I do a lot of reading, which I will get to that in a minute. I want to talk about some video stuff now. I've watched a handful of Chinese episodes of TV shows, but it's still a bit hard for me to understand a lot of things, and so I rely pretty heavily on comprehensible input channels, which are made by native speakers for learners, but they speak in natural Mandarin. Some of the channels that I watch are Lazy Chinese. I will link all these down below as well. Lazy Chinese, June Sticky Note Chinese, Xiaogua Chinese, Story Learning Chinese with Annie, Comprehensible Mandarin, and yeah, I will link all those down below. And those videos, I don't really watch the beginner videos because the beginner videos are just not challenging for me. So I will usually go between low intermediate and intermediate. I've dabbled in a high intermediate video here or there, but nothing. Sometimes they can be a little hard, sometimes not. But I've found that intermediate is a nice level, like that low intermediate to intermediate is a nice level where I can watch stuff. I can understand the gist of what's going on, but it challenges me enough to where I'm adding new vocabulary, to my repertoire, so to speak, right? I'm adding new vocabulary. So it's not like one new word per 500 words that I read. I might have a new word every couple of sentences, or sometimes every sentence if you get a little section there. But it's to where I can pick that up in context, and it's seeing the same word over and over again, that kind of stuff. And I'll watch the videos multiple times, which helps. And then I will go over the transcript again, which I will talk about here in a few minutes, but I will go over that. And yeah, I mean that's what I do. I really like the comprehensible input channels because again, they speak at a little bit softer of a level. Now some of the intermediate level stuff that I get, they will speak at a natural speed, which to be quite frank, I'm a big fan of because that's how people speak. They speak at a natural. That's the other reason I don't watch the beginner videos, because it's very, very slow. Tom went to the coffee shop, as to where a native speaker would say, Tom went to the coffee shop. That kind of stuff. And so the intermediate level, like I said, that's that perfect balance of challenging to where I'm learning, but not to the point to where I don't understand anything, so it's not enjoyable, which has allowed me to read a much longer time. TV shows that I have watched a little bit of is Office Girls, which I'm a big fan of. I've watched it before, so I know what's going on. I've watched it once with subtitles. This was a few years ago when I had studied a little bit of Chinese before, and I watch it now because I know the story, and so I can really just intently pay attention on people speaking, their speech patterns, the way that they say things, the way that certain words blend together, and I know what's going on in the story, so I can kind of follow along. I know what's happening, so I can sometimes make guesstimates about what words mean and things like that. So that's a show that I'm watching. Another one that I'm watching is on YouTube. It's called Happy Chinese, which I think was made by maybe even the Chinese government as a way to teach Chinese to foreigners. And it's pretty solid. It's a little quirky. I don't like it as much as even like the comprehensible input, because the thing I love about the comprehensible input and the channels that I watch is I can specifically say, that sounds interesting, or that doesn't sound interesting at all. And so I'll either watch it or not. Here's 5 weird facts about Chongqing. Yeah, that sounds dope. I'd like to watch it. Here's I don't even know an example. Here's why leaves are green, which honestly I'd probably still watch. But you know what I mean? Like, I can pick and choose the content that I want to watch, which of course keeps the content engaging. As far as Migaku goes, am I going to use Migaku and do the whole sentence mining thing? And the answer to that is maybe. I know that Migaku is very, very good. I think that what I'm running into now is so much of the vocabulary that I'm learning is such everyday spoken things that I can just see the words regularly. I think once I get to a comprehension level where I can understand most of daily speaking with no problem, and then I want to, oh man, I haven't heard the word for, I don't even know a good example. I'm trying to look around my kitchen to see if I can even think of anything, right? Like, I don't know the word for cat carrier, right? Maybe I don't see cat carrier often, and I don't even know when I would use it, but say it's a word I want to learn or use. So I would use Migaku to mine the sentence that had that in it. That way, that can be put in front of me at regular intervals until I got it, since odds are I'm not going to see that. That is like a very specific thing, right? Like, although it's probably just a combination of cat and carrier, I don't know. But just as an example, right? Like, that would be a very specific, unique vocabulary to that. And so I think once I get to a higher level, Migaku would be useful. I just don't think that right now, while I'm learning, basic vocabulary, right? I just don't think that it would necessarily benefit me. And to be honest, what I'm doing is working pretty well. And I know that because without doing flashcards in terms of sentence mining and stuff, like I'm having conversation. So yeah, Migaku eventually. I don't use anything like literally when I'm watching YouTube videos or Netflix or anything like that. I mean, I'm just using the built-in. Like, I'm not using Language Reactor or Migaku, anything like that. It's the natural subtitles. If I want to import that into Link and read it, I will. But other than that, I'm not overly, concerned about it. So it's going well. The immersion is going very, very solid. I started getting a little bit heavier because after I hit 1,000 characters, I started immersing more and doing less characters. I know I'd mentioned this before, but yeah, I just really want to drive home. Like, I spending more time with the language and less time studying, and I'm making just as good a progress because I have that backlog. I think that a lot of times in language, especially depending on, we have this like demonization of learning in terms of, the way that well, that doesn't work. You can't just rote memorize. It's like, well, you can. You also have to be exposed to the language. So I think that I personally think for my own journey, going so hard on study in the beginning to get a foundation, and now that I can immerse in stuff and enjoy it, yeah, I think it's been great. Am I as good as somebody who's been doing something? I don't know, and I, to be honest, don't really care. I'm doing my own journey, and I'm doing what makes me happy, and where I'm at now versus 1 year ago is a completely different human being in terms of where I'm at Chinese. So, yeah, I think that I just wanted to say that. I think that a lot of time, like, I think if people, like, I think studying in the beginning is not a bad thing. You're putting together building blocks to be able to make sense of the language. And you're going to see some of those words early so often that it's going to help you, again, get the gist of, conversations and things like that. So anyway, next up, we've got, so we're 1812. All right. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit of reading. I'm going to be talking about LingQ, which is what I use predominantly. Although I also use Do Chinese, but they go hand in hand, and I'll tell you about that. So 94 days ago, I started reading pretty heavily. I use LingQ, which is Steve Kaufman's platform. I love that you can import stuff, you can read your own stuff, and that's what I do. I don't read anything that's already on there. I import everything that I want to read, and things like that. So, but we'll talk about that. So I'm on a 93-day streak, 93 straight days of reading. Today will be 94. I just haven't done it yet. I had a speaking class this morning, so I've not read. Accumulating in the 93 days, I've read 62,000 words, which that is picking up. On the front end, it was a little bit fast, and then I kind of slowed down because I started doing some other stuff, but I was still reading, and now I'm picking back up with reading, so that's going to probably catapult or skyrocket pretty well. And before 94 days ago, over the course of time, I had accumulated 123,761 words read. And so, that's just a little bit of time before him over the last, year, where I would dabble in it. I would be like, oh man, let's do a couple days of reading. And then it was like, man, I still just don't quite know a whole lot. So maybe we should take a little bit of a break, and then whatever. But 93 days again, 94 days ago, basically, um, is when I started reading, and it is. That is also tallied for 1,945 words known just in Link. That obviously doesn't count because I know words outside of Link. I've just not seen them in the content that I've watched. But within the Link itself, I know roughly 1,945 words. So almost 2,000, which I will probably hit in the next little bit because I'm reading a crap ton right now, and there's still so many words that I know. But that's not an exact number either, because there's some stuff where, like, Hunhao, which would be, like, good, but, like, sometimes it's together as a word, and then sometimes the characters are split into two, and so, I mean, that would be 3 words known, even though it's literally the same thing. So it's not exactly accurate, although I do find it to be way more accurate than not. The parsing technology has gotten crazy. The parsing is really, really good. And in terms of words read, again, that's also a rough estimate. But it's, from what I've seen when I read, very rarely are there mistakes in parsing anymore. There are mistakes, but the parsing is like, I mean, 90, high 90s, 98, 97, 98, maybe 99% accurate from the stuff that I'm reading. Now, once I get into a little bit more intricate stuff, I can't I can't speak on that because I'm not there. But for what I'm doing, it is very, very well. I will say in the beginning, if you're learning Chinese, I love Link. It's one of my favorite things. I don't know if I would start in with it. I know that there's the idea that you can just kind of, start reading and force yourself to remember these characters. And while I think that's good, I also think that can be very detrimental, and it could kind of turn you away from it, because I think it's going to be very frustrating. From where I've learned over 1,000 characters, and I have a method in which I learn when I see a new character in Link. I can create a mnemonic and break it down into radicals and all this stuff in a matter of seconds, and so it helps me remember the character. And I think that makes it a little bit easier. I'm not here to tell you what to do and what not to do, because I think everybody should do what makes them happy, but I do think that if you would just be a little more patient and start, perhaps. I don't know if it's good for beginners. That's just what I'll say. The people can make their own judgment on that, I guess. So the stuff that I'm reading is very simple. I import, when I watch the comprehensible input from those channels, I will import that as a lesson into Link, and then I will watch the video, and I will read the transcript, and that way I can kind of match what's going on, which a lot of times will help me if I miss things, seeing the words. Like, if subtitles are on, my comprehension skyrockets, and if the subtitles are off, then it goes down. And of course, that's just something that is going to have to be worked out over time. But that is a main thing that I read. I import these lessons, and I go over them, and I go over them, and I go over them. And especially if it's something that I'm interested in, then I will do it multiple times. Like, for example, I've imported a lesson that is about different types of coffee. I've done it twice because while coffee is interesting, it's not that interesting to me. Although I did want some of the specific vocabulary. But then there's other things talking about, like, Lantern Festival, that is just really fascinating. Or I have a video that I watched on, it's like three weird things about Chongqing, something like that I've read like 7 or 8 times, because there's a lot of stuff in there, that's interesting to me. I'm very fascinated by that city. And then there's just vocabulary that's specific to it, talking about the steps, or talking about, the Shangche, the mountain cars that people see as stars because of how high like that kind of stuff is very interesting. So it's very easy for me to sit down, read it again, listen to it, and things like that. And I think that, obviously it's just picking the right content. So that's a lot of what I read. I also read from Do Chinese, but I actually import those to Link, which is a massive hassle. but I just prefer reading on that platform because, again, it goes towards total statistics. Currently, I'm reading a story called Ben's Diary. And this is actually part two. I've already read part one, which is about like graduation and doing some stuff on New Year's. Part two is about it's after his graduation, his love, adventures, things like that. And it's kind of like this episodic little thing, and like each lesson's like 2 or 3 minutes. And so it's this little thing where it's like an episodic thing that you can kind of look forward to, and you can kind of piece things together and learn things, and it's just kind of interesting to me, which is the point. There are stories on Do Chinese that I've also read. I've read like the Monkey Paw written in Chinese and things like that, and those are fun. But I like these little like slice of life daily like realism type of video or type of stories, because it's like I don't know if it's that it feels more relatable. I don't really know. I really like that kind of content. That was always my favorite stuff when I read Satori Reader in Japanese. They had like it was like Amiko something exchange student something, and like I liked reading that stuff, like this like almost like real life persona that has been developed for teaching these stories. So I'll import that. Now, importing it is an absolute nightmare. Do Chinese has, I don't know if they have it blocked or if it's because you can hover words. You can't just click import and import it. You can't actually copy the text from Do Chinese. So what I have to do is I have to take a screenshot of it, and then I have to copy the words out of the screenshot and paste it, and that'll usually take 3 to 4 times per lesson. And then I have an extension on Google where it'll download audio from a web page if audio plays, and I'll do that. I still mark it as read. I pay for Do Chinese, like it is what like I'm not trying to get free content. I pay for Do Chinese. This is not piracy in any way. I just prefer the reader on Link. Do Chinese is incredible, and I think that if you didn't want to pay for both of them, that you shouldn't, and Do Chinese would do it. I like the stats on Link. I love seeing how many words that I've read. I think the playlist feature's a bit better on Link. I like the way that you can catalog stuff in terms of creating, your own like courses, basically. Like with Do Chinese, I import courses as their own. Like Ben's Diary 1 is its own course, and instead of having Ben's Diary 2 at the end of that, it's its own course. And so I just really like the customization of Link a lot better. It's just I've always preferred that, and a lot of that's probably because it's what I started with when I first started doing any kind of reading in a foreign language, and so I it's just what I went with. So, but those are the things I do like. Do Chinese a lot. I think the story quality of created content is just incredible. They have so much stuff, and they have just so many ranges of level of content that you can find anything that you want. And to me, that is an invaluable resource. So I think that's it on the reading front. Usually when I'm watching videos, I don't have the subtitles on, so my reading is basically strictly to when I'm reading on Link, which is reading the transcripts. But when I watch these videos on YouTube and stuff, I try to keep the subtitles off, and it's so I can train my ears to hear, because that's the thing I'm just gonna have to work on is actually being able to hear, because when I'm out here in the real world, so to speak, there's not going to be Chinese subtitles to go around. So I just got to make sure of that. So, all right, let's go to the next topic here. Where are we at? We're at 29:19. So we're going to talk about a little bit of speaking now. So I started last week. I started doing 30-minute talking sessions on italki. I've done 3 of those as of this morning. I've done 3 of those. Golden Girls. I've done 3 of those lessons, and they've went so much better than I could have hoped for. I think a lot of that is finding the right teacher, obviously. Um, I with the teachers that I get, I get to control the conversation, which is incredible. They let me talk. They talk to me, but they let me talk. Instead of them talking and me listening and me chiming in every so often, it's me leading the conversation and they chime in to keep it going, or they'll help me, whatever. And that has been really, really good. The big thing is realizing how much I know. I know so much. There's so much Chinese from where I've been reading so much. There's so much Chinese in my brain that I just have to get out. And it's one of those things where it was really rewarding to me to see how much I knew, because it makes me feel like the work is paying off. Now, can I go out here and just have a fluent conversation? No. I could talk, but still, I have a long way to go to get fluid with things. It takes me a little bit to kind of just get into the rhythm. But I love that they let me control the conversation. I love that when I struggle, they let me find the word. They don't come in, right? Like if you're speaking and it's like, if you're even talking about this cup and you're like, oh man, this and if somebody was just like cup, then you don't have the opportunity to learn. You're learning, but like sometimes the best way to make a word stick is that last second recall, right? I had an example in one of my classes last week where I could not think of the word for strange, which is chiguai. And so I was trying to think of the word, and I was like, I was saying American. We were talking about chou tofu. We were talking about stinky tofu in Chinese, and she asked me if Americans liked it, and I said, I don't think Americans would really eat it. I think a lot of Americans would find it, and then I couldn't think of the word strange, and I was like, man, they would find it, and she sat there, she said, uh-huh, and I said, I was like, chi, and it's like that told her in her brain what I was trying to say, and she was like, okay, chi. I was like, chi guai, and chi guai, yeah. So she let me find the word, which now it's just cemented in my brain because of that situation. And I also literally today learned that chi guai is different than chi tu, and even though they mean strange, chi guai has a bit of a negative connotation as to where chi tu means like strange in a quirky way. I think it's chi tu. I have the notes now. I'll get the notes later. I'll look over them and then it should be good. But anyway, being able to struggle and find the word for myself was an amazing experience. And knowing that I can pull it, it's here. I just have to pull it and get it to come from here. And so that was good. I have 2 different teachers that I've used. I've used one teacher once and the other twice, obviously. I'm sure that you're not that bad at math. I'm pretty bad at math, but people probably could have deduced that based on, I said I've had 3 classes and I said I had 2 teachers. But anyway, the point is that one of them was going on vacation, and so she wasn't going to be here this week, and I booked another class. And I really like this other teacher as well. I like these 2. I'll probably have both of them. Because they're very, very good with speaking to me, very friendly. This is on iTalki, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that in the beginning. But yeah, it's I've really, really enjoyed the teacher. Now, I've had 2 instances where the teacher has told me. So she told me, I have it wrote down. She said that your pronunciation was clear and that they could understand what I was saying perfectly. She said I need a little bit of attention on some tones, but overall they understood me very clearly, but my grammar needs work. And that was a very cool experience to me. I know that like I've gotten people who are like, that's not how it's pronounced in my YouTube videos and stuff, but like when I'm speaking on these videos, I'm not trying to, like when I was doing a reading thing, and it was just the point that I knew what they were. I wasn't trying to pronounce things correctly. Maybe I should. I don't know. But when I'm speaking, obviously with a Chinese person, my brain is in Chinese mode, so I'm trying to speak correctly. And for her to say that she understood everything I was saying was a huge relief to me, because I feel like that is so much of a struggle for a lot of people. Tones can be very brutal, and if I do get a tone wrong, she'll correct me. And that's what's incredible. Not to the point to where it's like interrupting the conversation. Like, she doesn't correct me from a standpoint of um, every time I say something wrong. But after a little while, she'll be like, okay, let's go back and revisit this, or let's, whatever. And that is obviously very helpful, because I need that, but it also doesn't derail the conversation. I think it's kind of like reading. Like, sometimes when I'm reading, now I'll go through the lesson once and like break down every sentence if I need to. But like, sometimes as soon as you get to a word, you'll stop. But it's like you need to hear the whole thing, and I think that can derail you so much, just that start and stop. And so I'm happy the way that she corrects my sentences and stuff like that. And that just it made me feel good. It made me feel like everything that I've done and worked towards is starting to pay off. It's been a very slow journey, but also, I mean, that's exactly what this is. It's a journey. Like, it's going to be a long time before I'm anything, right? Like, it's and it'll never stop. Like, I'll always have to do it. So that was very rewarding. And then she also said that the thing today is, it surprised her, because when we started the conversation, I had asked her how she was doing. And I guess I said it somewhat emphatically, and she was like, whoa. She was like, that's cool. She was like, you can speak Chinese with emotion, which is hard for a lot of foreigners to do, especially when they're learning. And that made me feel pretty solid, like being able to speak in a way to where it felt like I was more than, just whatever. And I don't necessarily think that that's a big deal, because, I mean, just being able to have a conversation is the main point. But to know that I can speak with a little bit of emotion, to me also feels like I'm getting over a hump that I had naturally previously perhaps struggled with. So that was going very, very well, in regards to that. I think I'm going to keep speaking practice. I would ideally like to do it 3 days a week. I don't know if that's possible, but it should be. It's about $10 a lesson. And so in April, I started watching what I eat. I started like just eating healthier, cooking at home, and stuff like that. I'm down like almost 20 pounds, but I don't eat out like I used to, and so I'm not spending $20 and $30 a day. And so I thought, man, if I could spend $30 a day eating, and I'm not doing that anymore, if I can spend $30 a week to get Mandarin practice, I think that's a good idea. Do I think I? A lot of people have issues with when people start speaking, and I think the biggest thing is to do what you're comfortable with. I tried speaking Chinese from day one, not necessarily in a fashion where I was out speaking to people, but I would practice shadowing, and sometimes I would try to talk to myself. You can probably even find an old Instagram video, like on a reel on mine. Like, I have them saved. It's probably at the top, actually. Hold on, I bet there is. Where, let me see. Yeah, Mandarin right here. So, yeah, from August of 2019, right? So I tried to speak a little bit of Chinese then, right? Of course, this was in one of my 1 month fits of learning Mandarin and never sticking with it. But I don't. I know a lot of people say if you try to output early that it will hurt what you're trying to do. I don't know. I don't know if I believe it or not. I don't know how you would tell. Um, do I speak Mandarin perfectly? No, and I probably never will. But do I speak clearly enough to be able to be understood? Sure. And I guess the argument is like, well, you'll sound like you have an accent. I don't. Again, it's all personal preference. I personally don't understand the issue when people say that. Like, I don't want to have an accent. Okay, sure. I mean, that's great. I'm glad that it's just for me. I don't understand that. I don't, when as a matter of fact, if I'm out and about and I hear somebody speaking with an accent, like that's who I want to talk to because I'm like, hey, you're not from here. I want to learn about what you're doing. Can I help you? And then tell me about stuff. Like I want to learn about your culture, and I know because of an accent that you're potentially not, from here or whatever. So I don't know. I guess it's all just in. It just depends the way that you look at it. For me, do I think that it hurt any kind of Mandarin speaking? Not necessarily. Um, but also maybe. I don't know. I just know that I can speak for 30 minutes at a time and have a conversation and be understood. So I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so that is the speaking. Let me write this timestamp down. 40, 50. All right. So plans going forward are to simply enjoy learning the language. I have no goal for spending a certain amount of time per day. I want to read and watch things, and I want to speak. Yeah, so my plans going forward are just that. Spend time with the language every day. Not a set time because I've been very open about this. I think that setting time and then not hitting it is more detrimental than just spending a little bit of time. The goal is to spend time every day. And obviously, the goal is to spend more time than less. It's just, unfortunately, life exists, and that's not always something that can be done. So I think that spending time on making sure that I'm spending time on it instead of saying I need to study for an hour, I need to study for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5, whatever, and not hitting it is ridiculous. Not ridiculous, but I just think it can be detrimental. That's just my own personal thought. I do want to read every day. I plan on continuing that streak, unless I end up in an area where I have no service and it will destroy my streak, which it is what it is. I mean, it's not really important. I plan on reading every day. I plan on watching content every day a little bit. And that way I can practice multiple things. The reading really helps me learn new vocabulary. And then once I read it a couple times, I can rewatch the video, and then it's fine. And then I'll hear those words in other comprehensible input videos. And then the comprehensible input videos are great for listening practice, so I can start to hear the language and not rely on subtitles in order to make it right, because if I go to a Chinese restaurant and I'm talking, like, they're not gonna have subtitles. So and then I already touched on it. Continue on speaking practice. I think that's kind of the next thing for me is to be able to do that. And I've also learned words from that as well. So it is what it is. But those are my goals going forward. I mean, it might not be a fancy plan. It might not be a glamorous plan, but that's just the plan, just to continue doing. I'll add a couple of characters, at least a character every day, and then carry on. I'm going to spend much less time with Mandarin Blueprint, not because I don't think it's incredible. I think it's a fantastic service. I think that a lot of my success is owed to what they have done in terms of helping get me to a level of knowing characters and stuff. But like I said, now it's just like all the characters that you're adding are just like icing on the cake, and you've already built the cake. So, but I will continue. I will continue doing it. So, yeah, a little bit of characters, reading, watching, speaking. I can't do every day. I just don't have the money for it. I can't spend that kind of money. But other than that, I mean, it's every day, and then speaking 2 or 3 times a week, and I think that'll be fine. So I think that's pretty much the goals. So Um, 44, 45. If you're starting Mandarin, I don't have notes for this, but if you're starting Mandarin, um, and even if you didn't want to pay for Mandarin Blueprint, which I understand, it's a very expensive program. I think what I would do is I would start with Heisig's Remember the Hanzi, and I would break that book down. I would create my own flashcards. I wouldn't use a pre-created deck. I would create my own flashcards. I would create my own any of the props that they talk about using to create the character. I would create my own props. I think that in itself has been like your own radicals, like your own meaning. Like, oh, this means a gun, and it's like, well, I don't necessarily want to use that, so let's use this, or this means, whatever. I think creating your own kind of radical, what the radical means to you, I think is very important instead of going off of somebody else. And so I would absolutely. I would do that, and you can watch a video on Mandarin Blueprint's YouTube channel of how that's. I don't even remember. It's like a 45-minute video, but they explain to you their whole process, so you could actually just take their process and apply it to Remember the Hansa, and you'd be fine. I don't even think they would care. I mean, they've been open that their method is actually taken from like a professor somewhere or whatever, and also Heisig as well, or Hasig, whatever his name is. But I would start there. I would take that. I would take the Mandarin Blueprint system. I'd watch that video. If I didn't want to pay for it, I'd watch the video, see how they go with creating the how to remember what the character, how it's pronounced. I would take that and then I would apply it to the mnemonics that I created within Heisig, and I think that you'd be good. And then from there, I would do 1,000 characters. You could get through it pretty quickly, and then I would just start reading and watching content. I mean, if you did 10 characters a day, um, I mean, it would take you, what, 3 months to get 1,000 characters? 10, 10 days would be 100 characters, and then 20, 30 would be 300 characters. Yeah, 300 characters a month, 30, 60, 90. So a little over 3 months. And I think that you would be set up, and then just listen and read. And I think that would be that would be a perfect plan. That's where I would start, and then I would comprehensible input and read. I think that reading has been really, really beneficial for me, and I wish that more people would do it because it's almost like reading to me almost feels like a cheat code for acquiring a language. Like it's I don't know, it's so good. The other reason that I'm very high on please learn the characters, like learning these characters is what has helped me to be able to speak. It is what has helped me with so many things, because when I hear a Chinese person speaking, the image of that Hansa has cleared up what it is. Instead of just being like, okay, so they said sure. So is this first, second, third, fourth, or neutral tone? And is it? It's just the character. I don't know. It's like having a picture to go with it, and it just really helps me. So, and it happens in real time speed. Like it's not something that you have to slow down and think. When people are talking, like I know what they're talking about, pinning the subject, and it's because of these characters. I mean, it's an instantaneous thing. Like it's not a thing. I've seen where people are like, oh, but man, it could slow you down and it could do this, and it's like, well, I mean, it doesn't though, because the mnemonic and stuff is there just to get it into your brain, and eventually over the course of time, you're not going to remember the mnemonic, but you're going to remember the character. Like that's the whole point, is to remember that, and it happens. I mean, instant. So definitely, I think learning the characters is important. So, I think that's about it. I mean, Mandarin Blueprint, Immersion, Link, Speaking, Goals. Um, that's pretty much it. That has been my last year. Again, I do have experience with this prior to a year ago. It's just a year ago is when I started taking Mandarin seriously. It wasn't just like a weird hobby or I'll kind of dabble in it, which is what I had done before. I'm actually actively trying to acquire Mandarin, not just learn a handful of things. So it is a beautiful language. I don't know if I'll go anywhere else with language, and right now I don't really care because I'm having a lot of fun. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. the other thing is the weird thing about Mandarin is I forgot about this. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to go to China. I don't. China's very expensive to go to. At least the plane tickets. The last time I looked at plane tickets, they were, I mean, like $2,000 and $3,000. Of course, a lot of it has to do with where I live, and I have to drive 3 hours to the closest major airport anyway. Um, and that's one of the most expensive airports in the country. It's Charlotte, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to go, and that makes me sad. However, I think that learning the language and being able to speak it, because Chinese people are everywhere, so I could literally speak. Like, that's the cool thing about Mandarin is no matter where I go, I can speak Mandarin, right? Like, I don't know if I'll ever get to go to China or Taiwan, but I know that if I ever want to speak a language that I'm learning, I can go and speak Mandarin 5 minutes down the road. I can go speak at three more Mandarin spots 20 minutes down the road. And then if I'm willing to drive 30 minutes, I mean, there's 20 different Mandarin restaurants that I could be at, you know. And I think that's the, and not even Mandarin restaurants, stores that are ran by Chinese people. There's a World Market store in Blacksburg, stuff like that. And so being able to speak it is very, very just rewarding to me. And that's kind of the thing. So I don't know if I'll ever get to go. There's some cities that I would really love to see. I really want to eat some Sichuan food because it's supposed to be super spicy. And I love spicy food. And there's actually a restaurant, it's about an hour and a half away in Blacksburg, that specializes in Sichuan food. It's incredible. So I'd love to experience that in China. And then I would love, Ching Chong has like become like an obsession of mine. It's like one of the coolest. Chongqing, Ching Chong, Chongqing, yeah, Chongqing. Okay, Chongqing, China is one of the coolest cities I've ever seen in my life. So I would love to go there, but you know, I'm not learning language for travel, and that's kind of the big thing, I think, is some people do, and I am not necessarily that. You know, I used to learn for, I learned because I wanted to speak, and then I learned because I wanted to passively be able to understand. But once I started doing speaking, and that's multiple languages, not just Chinese, but Chinese, since I've learned and I can understand a bit, and I started speaking, it's become like an addiction. And so, yeah, I definitely want to be able to speak, and it's one of the few. Yeah, you could do Spanish and stuff, and I can do Spanish, and I mean I have Spanish people in my family, so I can do that anytime. But as far as like a language like this, like Chinese is the next best thing because it's everywhere. Like Japanese, there's a Japanese steakhouse. The Japanese steakhouse, as a matter of fact, down the road is ran by Indonesians. I've actually spoken a little Indonesian with them before. So yeah, Chinese is just it's just you can just speak it everywhere. So anyway, that is it. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to let me know. This is kind of just an all-encompassing 1 year update of taking Mandarin serious. Maybe that's what I'll call it, 1 year of taking Mandarin serious. I hope that the progress is very realistic to you. That's the goal, is I want it to be realistic. What can a realistic version of learning Mandarin look like? I'm not spending 8 hours a day. I'm a normal person. I have a family, whatever, but I can dedicate a little bit of time. And so I hope that you can look at this, and I hope that this can make you feel comfortable in your journey, what you're doing, and allow you to look at language learning in a way that is longevity and just sticking with it, and good things can happen. So I know that I have a long way to go. I know that I have a lot more to learn, and I know that if I continue doing what I'm doing in a year, I will be much closer to that goal. I don't know if I'll ever reach that goal, but I know that in a year from now, I will be much closer. So I am going to leave the video here. That is a very long video. I think it's the longest video I've made in that regard. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And again, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know down below. and I will see you guys in the next one.